Morning, Abotai. We're a very, very salad and green-based nation now, and many places in the world are salads and all sorts of bowls and things like that. Greens, vegetables. It's very popular in our culture. Many times, though, if you look in the words of the poskim, especially lettuce, that's something that's highly, highly infested with bugs and insects. And if you look in the Gemara, in Masechet Makot, the Gemara, Masechet Makot of Tetzayin, the Gemara speaks about how many isurim a person can transgress for consuming even one insect. Now, it depends whether it's a land insect, a water insect, a flying insect. It could be 4, 5, or 6 malkuyot. So it's a very, very egregious lav. That's for one tiny bug. Especially when you have greens and other kinds of herbs that are infested with many of them, that's tremendous. That's a tremendous amount of isurim. Hagon Knesset Gdola, Rabbeinu Chaim ben Benisti, writes that originally for mitzvat maror, which we use romaine lettuce for maror, he used to use the leaves of the lettuce, but then he saw how infested it was. He says he stopped. Even after checking, he only used the white spine, the stalk of the lettuce, and that's it. Also, in Minagei Gaon Chatam Sofer, it says that for Pesach, for the 2 nights of Pesach, he would hire Talmidei Chachamim from his yeshiva to check tediously lettuce with a microscope, and only then would he use it for maror. During the rest of the year, lettuce was never served at his table at all. That was the Chatam Sofer. So for all the naysayers, people say, well, what did they do back in the day? What did they do in the olden days? Okay, there you go. Minhagei Chatam Sofer, he didn't eat lettuce during the year period because of the infestation. Many, many such things. The Gaon of Moshe Feinstein has a tshuva about it. He says that in Europe, the cabbage used to be tremendously infested and they used to have to check it, and not just anybody, somebody who's trained, somebody who knows. And the same thing, what he was talking about over there in Europe about cabbage, applies to the United States with regards to lettuce and many other types of greens. So sometimes people have a tendency of being in denial that no, if I can't see it, it's not there. Sometimes you can't see it because you're not trained. I'm not saying that that's a totally different shiur. Whether or not you have to be looking with a microscope, that's a different story. But things that a person's eye is not trained to see, it's sometimes hard for him to see. It's there, and regular people can see it, and the trained eye can see it, but person's not used to it. So a person has to be very, very careful. Similarly, in Halab, in Aleppo, in Syria, approximately 150 years ago, there's a terrible infestation in grape leaves. Grape leaves is a very big part of Middle Eastern cuisine. Yeah, in Syria they call it yebre. I think Bukharians and Persians they call it dolma. But they had a very tremendous infestation. So the Chachamim said they found they couldn't get it clean. They didn't say, well, our culture depends on it. So what did the Chachamim of the city do? They said, anybody who eats grape leaves from now on is in chayrim. That was the solution of the Dayanim of the city of Aleppo. That was the solution over there. So you have to understand nowadays, Baruch Hashem, things have gotten much better with regards to greenhouse grown, which also very, very highly minimizes the amount of bugs that these greens are infested with. The amount of checking and the experts in the field of checking are, Baruch Hashem, more numerous now than they were the expertise. You have to know there are methods that work and there are methods that don't work. You ask every person, they'll tell you a different method. I soak it in this, and I put this salt, and I put that spice, and then all the bugs magically disappear. We have to be straight and understand there are methods that work to clean and check, and there are methods that don't. And there are some places, even some, you shouldn't rely on just anyone to say, especially, just salad. What can be wrong with the salad? Sometimes you should know, especially today, sometimes the most non-kosher items on the menu in some places are the salads themselves. So a person has to realize, we were speaking about for a few days, about the isur of lifnei ivel lo titen michshol. Don't just rely on anybody. It's got to be an expert in methods that are tried and tested and proven to remove the bugs, to check the bugs. And if not, and guess what? And if you're not expert, so don't eat it, or nothing's going to happen. That's what Gdolei Olam from Dorot Milfanenu did. Otherwise, go get trained. Oh, what am I supposed to do? Look at the post scheme. Sometimes people think that they can't live without, and therefore there's no recourse. Go get lettuce that was grown under controlled substances. And I keep on saying lettuce because that's one of the biggies, but there's many other ones as well. And if you don't know how to check, so don't convince yourself into thinking that you do. Go learn, go get trained, go ask, expert hashgachot about how to do it, and then proceed from there. But don't, a person shouldn't treat it lightly, certainly not when it comes to feeding his family or feeding other people. There could be, like the Ben Ish Chai writes in Parashat Tzav, in his Hilchot Pesach, he says If a woman doesn't check the lettuce properly for the maror for Pesach, she could be serving more isurim on her table than the hairs on her head. That's the language of the Ben Ish Chai. So it's something that should be taken quite seriously. Have a wonderful day.